Dow Brothers Race Car. We have an update on the Falcon, so let's take a look. As you guys can see, the axle has been shortened, so now we have some clearance. So now we got some clearance on the rear axle. You guys can see before we had a nasty rub with the tires, and he has done a whole bunch of trickery to shore up the subframe. You might hold this. So let's follow from the ass end going forth. As you guys know, before we had some structural issues, just where my finger is, just that way. We had some structural issues before where the G-link was tearing away from the plate back here, away from where the rear seat pan is, but you can see Cole fabbed up a tubular structural thing to hold the third link coming from the diff all the way up, and he reinforced it using the existing subframe connectors. So that is pretty much a stronger deal now, and that's kind of it. And moving forth, you can see the motor is in. The Detroit Speed Alumaframe engine mounts are pretty trick. Look how that Windsor sits in there, 430-inch Windsor. Look at that oil pan. I mean, you don't have to worry about any clearance because we're running dry sump. So you can see the 3-stage dry sump system is looking pretty damn trick. We brought the brakes so we can make test fit the brakes inside of the spindles. Right now there's no brakes attached to the spindles. So we have the Willwood super light 14-inch 6-piston caliper deal. So there we are. So as you can see, I thought about going with the X-Gen or the Quadrolink for the Mustang, but we decided to keep the Chris Austin G-Link. What we can do is I can swap out to a Detroit Speed JRI single adjustable shock for the rear end to shore that up. So not a big deal to keep the G-Link. Time is not on my side, so that was the way to go. But I mean, just going forth, this thing is pretty trick. To see it in person is just pretty amazing. And again, this gives the car some structural rigidity. You can kind of see if you're going from side to side, it just adds structure. So, and as you can see, there's the flywheel in for the McLeod RXT. It's temporarily installed, and there's the RXT clutch, and just moving right along. But really impressed with this, how this dry sump AV8 pan really, you know, we got the clearance that we need, and adjustability with the height, or with their engine mounts, how they designed it to mount with their cradle is pretty trick, because all that does is, like I said before, you can run a big block Chevy or big block Ford, small block Ford, Coyote, LS, anything you want. You just swap out the mounts to orient the engine block to the cradle. So that's pretty trick. And then look at the clearance. I mean, we got clearance all day. So yeah, shout out to Dow Brothers for getting after this, and we're just kind of moving right along. Alrighty guys, you can see they got the 430 Windsor in, and look how that sits next to the just the way it sits in there is just a whole different, it changed the whole dynamic of the car. And it hasn't even been driven yet, but you can just see how different it is. And yeah, so now we are curious to see if we think the headers will work, or may have to do go a different route. But there, she's coming along. Guys, you won't believe how cool this stuff is. You just have to take it from me. But huge gains with clearance, because now we don't have to worry about cutting a tire. We are inboard. We lost, shortened the axle 3/4 of an inch on each side, so we are inch and a half narrower, which gave us the clearance we need. And we still got room, so if we ever wanted to run a 345, we could. can see room inside there, and we're not going to rub. But check out what he did to make this, to really gusset this thing up and to support it where it wouldn't go anywhere. I mean, this thing is structural, pretty good. And so it goes from here, and it flows down, and then it ties into the subframe here, and then it ties in here, but also in here, these pieces, I don't know if you guys can see that, that goes in and ties into the roll cage inside the car. So that's tied into something structural. And then as you go forward here, you can see the trans mount is in. And you know, thankfully we got that dry sump flat pan in, because that gives us all the clearance. But I think we're gonna run into some clearance with the headers. So that'll be the next challenge, guys, but we are getting there. Shout out to Dow Brothers, shout out to Detroit Speed for doing their trick stuff. I mean, so until the next, and shout out to CSM Racing Engines. Falcon, just look at the stance on her. I mean, she's got looking as mean as ever, just mean as ever. And she is done right. I have confidence in this rear end now. And I mean, he got that bracing for the rear subframe. Additionally, he got that high and tight, so it hangs no lower than the subframe connector. So, pretty trick, guys. Pretty trick.